Welcome back to the third hour of my hardcore SkyBlock series, where we are now on the 8th night on my SkyBlock world. But first, let's recap on what happened for episode 2. On the 4th night, I killed some spiders and creepers for some string and gunpowder. On day 5, I once again wasted bone meal on a tree. But later that night, I was attacked by phantoms. As daylight came on the 6th day, I planted my first melon. But then on the 7th night, I did my best defending my home from phantoms. And on the 8th morning, I killed my first phantom like a boss. I'm a teenager, and I've been in scouting and Boy Scouts for nearly all my life. I always enjoyed exploring with my friends and being trusted with more responsibility as I got older. A few years ago, 2 girls, Laura and Beth, and I, were asked to head into the woods surrounding our campsite to find a long, straight stick suitable for carving into a point. Keep in mind that I was a lot younger then. Laura was the oldest, and Beth was only a year older than me. We walked deliberately in the same direction so we wouldn't get lost, memorizing our surroundings as we went so we could easily retrace our steps. After about 15 minutes, we still couldn't find anything worth taking back. So we turned around to return to the campsite. That's when the panic set in. See, the trees had almost unnaturally knitted themselves together in such a way that it looked as if our path had never existed, like it had simply vanished. We spun slowly in a full circle, staring in every direction. And everything looked exactly the same. Trees we could have sworn were different from one another now looked like perfect copies. We kept walking in what we thought was the right direction, shouting for help as we went, until we eventually came to a thin concrete path, almost like a narrow road, splitting the forest neatly in two. We didn't follow it because it didn't lead toward where we believed our campsite was. On the other side of the path was more forest, but nearby was an abandoned shack, probably used for storage or something else. None of us had any idea anything like that existed out there, so we just kept walking. Eventually, we reached a road we didn't recognize at all. A woman in a pink and purple outdoor jacket walked past, and we immediately rushed toward her asking for directions. By that point, according to our watches and Laura's phone, we had been talking for an hour and a half. The woman said she told us there was another campsite in that direction, pointing ahead. We followed her advice and thankfully made our way back to our campsite. We apologized for being gone for so long and for returning empty-handed. Our leader, Mr. Grant, looked at us with confusion written all over his face. "You've only been gone 25 minutes, he said. "Your free time is still going." To this day, it baffles the 3 of us. Our free time was 40 minutes long, and our phones and watches all said we'd been wandering for well over an hour. The forest we got lost in felt crushing and claustrophobic, like we'd stepped into a place where the normal rules of time didn't exist. I believe in the paranormal, but this was unlike anything I've ever heard of or experienced. It genuinely felt like we'd walked into some kind of time vortex, where hours in the woods translated to only minutes in the rest of the world. The feeling was incredibly strange, and it stayed with me for the rest of the camp. I was writing this on my phone at work while still shaken, so you'll have to forgive how messy it was originally. I'm an overnight guard at a hospital, and I've been here about 5 years. Altogether, I've worked night security for around 12 years in different settings. Before that, I was a Marine. My point is, I'm used to weird situations, strange noises, and the general bumps in the night. The hospital where I work has had its share of strange things happen, like any old building, but nothing too intense. Tonight was different. Part of my job is patrolling and unlocking this extremely old building, one of the very first buildings ever built in the city. It now serves as the College of Nursing, but at night, it's completely deserted. Around 3 a.m., the hospital was peaceful. I refused to use the Q word. So I headed over to get the locks out of the way. I'm in this building all the time, 2 to 5 times a week, every week for 5 years. I've gotten used to the creepy atmosphere, and honestly, I kind of like the quiet. But tonight felt off. As soon as I approached the entrance, this heavy feeling settled in my gut. It was the unmistakable sensation of being watched by a predator. Anyone who spent time deep in the woods knows that feeling. Your hackles rise and your instincts scream, "Get out of here." I stepped outside, scanning the street behind me and the courtyard in front of me, but I didn't see anything. The feeling just wouldn't go away. I went inside and locked the doors behind me, planning to unlock them last. As I made my way through the building, the feeling only intensified, especially as I moved toward the older parts of the structure. I knew I was completely alone. I'd already gone through the first floor, and every entrance was locked tight, and only a key could open them. When I reached the upper floors, I started hearing things. At first, it sounded like footsteps, but they matched my cadence so closely it was hard to tell. What caught my attention was the sound itself. Hard-soled shoes, not the boots I was wearing. I turned back and checked the hallways. Absolutely nothing. Then a door slammed shut behind me, the same hall I had just cleared. I ran back. It took only a few seconds to reach it. The door opened to an empty auditorium. I searched the whole space. Still nothing. I tried shrugging it off. Old buildings make noises. Maybe I heard the pipes shifting, or maybe I overlooked a door that rattled shut. I kept going, but that gut feeling only grew worse. I reached the stairwell leading to the 4th floor and paused, leaning against the wall while messing with my phone. That's when I heard another door slam, below me this time, and the distinct sound of footsteps echoing up the stairwell. I lifted my radio to call dispatch, but when I pressed the button, it only beeped. Dead battery. Great. I quickly called on my phone instead, and dispatch said they'd send backup. I waited, but the footsteps stopped. No more doors, no more sounds. I walked the whole stairwell, down and back up to 4, and found nothing. At this point, I was second-guessing myself, bracing for the jokes I knew the others would throw my way. I decided to just finish the top floor and work my way down to meet the other guards. But when I opened the door to the 4th floor, everything was different. And it wasn't just the atmosphere. The entire floor was physically different. The old offices used for storage were gone. The white walls now had dark wood paneling. The clutter was replaced by old medical and lab equipment. Filing cabinets stood where boxes should have been. And at the far end of the hall, sitting in leather-bound chairs in opposite corners, were two men talking quietly. They stopped as soon as I opened the door, turning to look at me. I blinked, and everything snapped back to normal. I don't understand it. 1 second the floor looked completely different, like another time period, and the next it was exactly how it had always been. Out of instinct, I tried my radio again, remembering the dead battery, but this time it worked. I called for units to come up as I searched every office. Of course, by the time everyone arrived, the floor was normal. We finished checking the building, and I took the crap from the others. I went down to dispatch, knowing there were cameras on those floors, and I wanted to see what the footage showed. We reviewed it. The moment I opened the door to the 4th floor, the camera feed froze for about 8 seconds. It's not unheard of, but it's uncommon for those cameras, especially in that low-traffic building. The dispatcher, who had been working there since the dawn of time, listened as I described what I saw. Then he said, "Weird. That's how this floor looked in the 80s, before they renovated it to be the labs for the college." I was speechless. I tried saving face and said I must have been tired, but I know that's not true. I was wide awake, and I know exactly what I saw. I know what I heard in the rest of the building. I just don't know how to explain any of it. Everyone has their weird experiences in that building, but this one? No, this one really threw me. Growing up in a small town meant everyone knew everybody and everything about them. When I was in elementary school, there was a kid named Evan who lived about a quarter mile from my house. His family was extremely poor, living in a very dilapidated trailer. On top of having almost no money, his parents cared for another son, older than Evan, who was severely mentally disabled. He couldn't walk, speak, use the bathroom, or eat on his own. Evan's dad worked in a factory while his mom stayed home full-time to care for his brother. Even though they struggled, his parents tried hard to give their kids a safe place to grow up. But even in our backwoods, middle-of-nowhere town, kids still made fun of Evan for coming from a poor household. He didn't always smell the best. His hair was greasy, and his clothes were old hand-me-downs. And if you know children, you know they can be cruel. They hurled insults at him for things he had no control over. I never joined in, even though my friends were the ones teasing him. We weren't close friends, but we sat together on the bus sometimes because we both loved Transformers. For his birthday and Christmas, he would always get a figure or two. I still remember in 4th grade when the live-action Transformers movie came out on DVD. I gave it to him as a birthday present on the bus ride to school. He was so happy. But the bullying, the stress at home, and being overshadowed by the needs of a disabled brother took a heavy toll on him. I watched him change from kindergarten to 6th grade. I saw a normal kid slowly turn into a withdrawn, silent shell who had emotional outbursts at least once a week. I struggled academically in elementary school, so my parents pulled me out of public school and homeschooled me until I caught up. I was angry about it at the time, but later I was glad they did it. Even from home, I still saw Evan sometimes, walking the full length of the road, talking to himself. Every single day after junior high got out, he'd walk about 4 miles like that. By 8th grade, I realized I hadn't seen him in a while. I texted a friend who still went to school with him to ask if he knew what had happened. He told me Evan had asked a girl out and been rejected, loudly and publicly, while other students made fun of him. The next day, Evan brought his father's handgun to school. He waited until the girl went into the locker room, followed her inside, and pulled the gun out. He aimed and pulled the trigger, but it clicked empty. There were no bullets inside it. A staff member saw him go in after her, rushed in, saw the gun, and tackled him. Evan was arrested and spent 3 years in juvenile detention. When he got out in high school, he was even further gone. He didn't return to school. He walked the roads all day, every day, yelling at cows in the fields and screaming at passing cars. I heard he tried to join the military but was turned away. Still, he wore military clothing, a bomber jacket and a beret, rain or shine. One day I rode my bike past him and stopped to say hi. I hadn't spoken to him since 6th grade. He screamed that he would kill me and my family for bullying him. I hadn't bullied him, ever, but he clearly believed otherwise. I rode away and took a different road home that evening. Eventually, I left for college and didn't think about him again. But during summer break after freshman year, I saw him walking down the road. When I drove past, our eyes met. He screamed, "Kill!" at my car. I knew he didn't know which house was mine, but he definitely knew what road I lived on. As I turned down my road, I saw him running after me in the rearview mirror. I sped up, parked in the garage, and closed it quickly. I stayed inside the rest of the day with my parents trying to shake it off. That night before bed, I opened my second-story window to let the cool air in. Sometime around 2 a.m., I woke up to a creak outside of my door. I assumed it was one of my parents going to the bathroom and went back to sleep. 20 or 30 minutes later, I heard another creak. One I recognized. It was the sound the floor made when someone stood in front of my closet. I shot up. A lanky figure stood in my room, lit only by the faint moonlight coming through the open window. It was Evan. I jumped out of my bed instantly. I didn't want to fight. I didn't know if he had a gun, a knife, or anything else. Instead, I sprinted out, slamming the door behind me and yelling for my family. They came running out of their rooms as I shouted for them to run. At that moment, Evan bolted out of my room too. He tore down the stairs and out the front door. My dad called the police. We told them exactly who it was and where he lived. They went to his trailer and searched for him, but he wasn't there. They never found him. That was 7 years ago. I've moved far away now, and my parents have too. Every time I visited home, I couldn't help but look for him, half afraid I would see him again. I never did. The police never followed up. The whole thing just faded away. I still don't think I ever bullied him. I tried to be kind to him when we were just kids, but some people just don't have stable mental health, and constant bullying can destroy someone. In this case, I feel like I suffered the consequences of everyone else's cruelty toward him. I genuinely hope he's somewhere safe, getting real help from professionals, in a home suited for his needs. I don't post much, so forgive me if this is long. I wanted to cut it down while keeping all of the important details intact. The context. When I was 18, I lived in a suburb in southeast Melbourne, Noble Park. Our house was the odd one out on a street lined with 70s and 80s brick homes. Ours was an Alpine-style weatherboard house with a steep roof built in the early 20th century. It was old, cold, and loud, and you could literally see the ground through the gaps in the floorboards. We had a big outdoor dog who only came inside when everyone was home, and who slept in a pen outside during the summer. We also had an indoor cat. When this happened, I was home alone. My dad was overseas, and my mom and sister were visiting family. Here's what happened. One night, walking home from work, I rounded the corner toward the driveway and saw a figure standing on our carport roof, staring through the window into one of the 3 upstairs bedrooms. The sun was just setting, so all I could see was a dark silhouette. I yelled from the top of the driveway, and the figure vanished instantly. What struck me as odd was that our dog never barked. He didn't react at all. I went inside, checked the house, checked the dog, checked all the windows and doors, and everything seemed normal. I convinced myself it had just been a strange shadow from one of the trees in the fading sunlight. The next night, I walked home again. Everything seemed normal. I followed my usual routine, checked the windows and locks, let the dog inside for the evening, then eventually put him and myself to bed. My bedroom was upstairs, down the hall from the room facing the carport roof. Before bed each night, I had a routine of shutting all the interior doors. They were all old and squeaky, and drafts would blow them shut on their own if I didn't. That night, I closed every door, checked every lock, turned off all the lights, and went to sleep. The night everything happened, I was awakened by something. I wasn't sure what. When I opened my eyes and focused, I noticed light coming in from the hallway under my bedroom door. I distinctly remembered turning that light off. Maybe I forgot. Then my doorknob rattled. It shook like someone was struggling to twist it open. My body went cold. I immediately lay on my side, facing the wall, pretending to be asleep. My heart hammered so hard it echoed in my ears. The door opened. I shut my eyes tight, leaving only the eye against the pillow open slightly, just enough to see. The hallway light illuminated my wall. The door was fully open now. I didn't move. I looked at the digital clock on my CD player. It was a little after 2 a.m. A moment later, the door creaked again, and I watched the light on the wall fade as the door slowly closed. At that point, I was sure someone had broken in, but I stayed perfectly still. If they thought I was asleep, maybe they'd leave. I listened through the thundering of my heartbeat. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, no movement of any kind. Then I felt the pressure. Something pressed against both my feet through the blankets. The covers stretched tighter, and I realized something, or someone, was sitting at the end of my bed. The clock now read just before 3 a.m. I was frozen, terrified. I had no idea what to do. Eventually, I decided to try shifting my position slightly just to see if anything reacted. I slowly moved my feet, and one of them hit something solid. There was definitely someone sitting there. I stayed completely still, listening, watching the glow of the digital clock and the dim moonlight on the wall. My mind raced. The next thing I remember was hearing birds outside, early morning bird song. The sky was beginning to lighten. I looked at the clock again, a little before 6 a.m. Moments later, the pressure at my feet lifted. I heard the door open. The hallway light spilled in once again. Then the door shut. As the sun began to rise, I got out of bed and checked the entire house. Every door and window was still locked. The dog had slept deeply all night and hadn't reacted to anything. My cat, however, was stuck in the bathroom. He must have slipped in behind me when I brushed my teeth. Nothing in the house was missing. Nothing was disturbed. But something was in my room. I still don't know what happened that night in Noble Park, but I'll never forget it. I grew up never really believing in ghosts or anything supernatural, and honestly, nothing in my life ever pushed me to reconsider until that night. What happened changed me in a way I still cannot fully explain. I live in Pune, a bustling city in India where life never really stops, no matter the hour. One cold winter evening, I was sitting at my desk, sipping coffee and lost in my thoughts, when my mom asked me to go buy some medicine for her. Being the procrastinator I was, I told her I'd go later. Time slipped away, and soon it was 11 p.m. The streets outside were unusually quiet, carrying that eerie late-night stillness that only settles when the rest of the world sleeps. I finally grabbed my jacket and bike keys and headed out to the 24/7 medical store nearby. After picking up the medicine, I felt the familiar urge to go for a late-night ride, something I often did to clear my head. There's a small bridge not too far from my place, surrounded by towering trees and shadowed by distant high-rises. At night, it had a haunting beauty to it. Beneath the bridge ran a dam, and when it was open, the rushing water created a mesmerizing, soothing hum that echoed through the cold air. Here's something important. In India, we don't bury the dead, we cremate them. And this bridge had 4 cremation sites around it, 2 at each end. I never paid much attention to that. I wasn't superstitious, and I never believed in ghosts anyway. It was around midnight when I arrived. I parked my bike at the start of the bridge, lit a cigarette, and played some music. The cold breeze whispered through the trees, and the distant water blended into a surreal, almost peaceful symphony. At the far end of the bridge, I noticed a pyre burning, a body being cremated. Out of respect, I decided to stay where I was. An hour passed before I finally decided to head home. To do that, I had to ride past the burning pyre. I started my bike and rolled forward slowly. The closer I got, the more aware I became of the flames dancing in the darkness. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. A shadow. At first, I dismissed it as a trick of the light, but as I drew closer, the shadow sharpened into the shape of a man, squatting right beside the burning pyre. I slowed down to look more clearly, and what I saw still haunts me to this day. He was scratching his head violently, almost as if trying to rip his scalp right off. His movements were frantic, jerky, and disturbingly unnatural. His hair began to catch fire from the pyre, but he didn't react. Instead, he rocked back and forth, making guttural, animalistic noises that didn't sound human. My heart froze. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, but my body felt like it had disconnected from my brain. Then he turned. In a sudden, unnatural snap, faster than anything I'd ever seen, his head whipped toward me. I'll never forget the sound that accompanied the movement, a sharp, crackling zap, like static electricity breaking the air. The fire illuminated his face, and his eyes were 2 hollow, empty pits that seemed to swallow the light around them. Somehow my instincts finally kicked in. I killed my headlights and twisted the throttle, trying to move as quietly as possible, hoping he wouldn't chase me. But as I passed him, I felt it. A cold, piercing gaze, drilling into me like he was trying to look directly into my soul. I didn't look back. My hand shook uncontrollably, sweat soaking my clothes despite the cold. I rode faster than I ever had, praying he wouldn't follow me. When I reached home, I locked every door and window, my heart still pounding. I barely slept. The next morning, I woke up with a high fever that lasted 2 full days. When I finally worked up the courage to return to the bridge during daylight, there was nothing. No signs of anyone, no footprints, no evidence of cremation the previous night, nothing but quiet water and sunlight. To this day, I don't know if I saw a ghost, hallucinated, or witnessed something else entirely. But one thing is certain, I will never go near that bridge at night again. Please be kind here. I didn't even like telling this story because I always felt no one would believe me. I'm relatively new to Reddit, but seeing others share their experiences finally made me think it might be time to tell mine. This happened around 2007. Two friends and I were out ghost hunting in a very remote little town in western New York. My friend Emma wanted a couple more pictures in the old cemetery, so her boyfriend John and I waited in my SUV while she walked around taking photos. It was around midnight. We were parked on a back road, not totally dark, since there were a few streetlights up ahead. Emma was behind us and off to the right, but we could still see her and her flashlight. John and I happened to be looking up the road at the same time when, about 65 yards ahead, something appeared. Out from under the streetlight on the left side of the road stepped a black figure in a wide-brimmed hat. And when I say appeared, I mean appeared. 1 second the road was empty, the next second he was just there. The figure was blacker than black, like a silhouette cut out of reality. It wasn't a person. It had no features, no texture, no details, just a void wearing a flat-topped hat with a wide brim. On my mother's grave, it took maybe 30 steps before it morphed. There's no other word for it. It took the shape of a black cat. Still featureless, still a void, but clearly cat-shaped. It reached the streetlight on the opposite side of the road and then slipped into a nearby field and vanished. For about 2 full minutes, John and I just stared at each other, frozen. Finally, he whispered, "You saw that too, didn't you?" We stayed sitting there in absolute awe and sheer terror. A moment later, Emma came back to the SUV. I couldn't even move to unlock the doors at first. Eventually, I managed to lift my hand to hit the unlock button. She climbed in and joked, "You both look like you saw the devil himself." John, who was a big guy, tall, muscular, intimidating, was actually shaking. He actually had tears in his eyes, but all he could manage was one word: cat. I tried to explain to Emma what we'd seen, but I could barely form sentences myself. It was a 35-minute drive home, and I distinctly remember her saying, "Alright, guys, this isn't funny anymore. You're really starting to scare me." John insisted we take him to his church, where there was an outdoor statue of Mary. We both said a prayer there. While he continued praying, I finally managed to explain the whole thing to Emma. Even as I was saying it out loud, I felt crazy. To this day, the memory chills me to my core. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't human, and it wasn't of this earth. Part of me wants answers desperately, but another part of me knows I may be better off not knowing what we saw. Emma and I lost touch for a few years, but eventually reconnected. When we talked about that night, because it was always the elephant in the room, she told me something disturbing. For a couple of weeks after the event, every cross in her mother's house kept swiveling upside down on its own. It only stopped when her mother went around the house praying deeply and blessing every room. Emma and John lived with her at the time. Did something follow them home? I've never seen anything like that again, and I pray I never will. Edit. Just days after posting this, my cat died suddenly in my arms from an unexpected medical emergency. Even stranger, earlier the same day, Emma's 8-year-old dog died. My cat was 16, but I can't help wondering if telling the story somehow stirred something up. I hit my head hard and lost consciousness for almost a full day. When I finally woke up, the first thing I realized was that I had no memory of the previous 2 days. That alone was unsettling, but it was nothing compared to what I experienced while I was out. For hours, I wasn't really there. My body moved, spoke, and even opened its eyes, but I wasn't inside it. I couldn't feel anything. No pain, no warmth, no sense of time. Just a vast, cold void stretching endlessly around me. It wasn't darkness, and it wasn't a dream. It was something worse. A place where I didn't exist. And yet, there were sounds. They were faint, distorted, and impossible to identify. Whispers, murmurs, echoes, they drifted close, then faded, like voices dragged through the water. I couldn't understand words, only vibrations, ghost-like traces of speech. Sometimes I thought I heard my own name, drawn out slowly and heavily as if someone or something was calling to me from behind layers of walls, from a place I couldn't reach. I was trapped between two worlds, the void pulling me downward and those distant, indecipherable sounds trying to pull me upward. My body responded to them without me, but I couldn't take control. I was a passenger in my own life, watching, hearing, but not living. Time didn't exist. Minutes stretched into hours, hours collapsed into nothingness. I don't know how long I drifted there. I only remember the sensation of being completely severed from reality. Even now, it feels like I was torn in two, one half trapped in that endless void, and the other still connected to the world, helplessly moving without me. When I finally came back, everything felt wrong. Voices sounded distant, faces looked familiar but strange, objects seemed slightly misplaced, like the world had rearranged itself while I was gone. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was terrified of not being there, of knowing my consciousness could vanish while my body continued on autopilot. The memory still haunts me. I can still hear those whispers, that distorted call of my own name. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I feel myself slipping back into that void, suspended in a space with no walls, no light, no ground. My body exists, but I'm not inside it. And the thought that it could happen again at any moment is unbearable. It changed me. I'm no longer the person I was before the fall. I now understand how fragile consciousness is, how thin the line is between being present and disappearing completely. The void is real, and it waits in the space between being awake and being gone. If you ever hit your head hard enough to lose consciousness, know this: you might return, but a part of you might stay behind. Your body will continue, the world will keep moving, but your mind may wander where no one can reach it. And in that wandering, you may hear things, faint, terrible things, that remind you in the most profound way that you are not always yourself. Back in 2018, I was working security for the Plaza Theater in El Paso, Texas. It was around November, and El Paso Live, the company that runs the theater, had hired a crew to film a commercial for their annual Winter Fest. I was posted in the theater lobby, watching all the equipment the camera crew had set up and directing actors when they needed help. The actors were warming up inside the theater on the stage, and eventually the crew in the lobby began calling everyone out to start filming. All the actors and crew members left the stage, and the lobby, leaving me completely alone. I sat down just outside the theater doors and started playing Pokemon Go, since there are a ton of Pokestops in the area. About 10 minutes passed before I heard knocking from behind the closed theater doors. I didn't think much of it. Old building, lots of creaks and pops, so I went back to my game. Not 5 seconds later, I heard 3 loud slams against the door. I stood up and stepped over to it. My first thought was that maybe an actor had gone to the restroom and lost track of time, or someone had gotten turned around. I opened the door. No one was there. The only lights inside were the aisle lights, the exit signs, and the ghost light on stage. I pulled out my flashlight and scanned the seating area, expecting to see someone crouched behind a row of seats. No one was there. But something was. There was a light, a small, bright light, bouncing around and spinning in the center seating section. I pulled out my phone and started snapping pictures as fast as I could. The light moved toward me, darting and bobbing like it had intention behind it. Then, without warning, it shot across the theater to the left side, right under an exit sign, and slowly faded away. I kept my camera button held down the whole time. I backed into the lobby and started scrolling through the photos. What I saw made my heart drop. There, under the exit sign, was a figure. It looked like a little girl with long hair. I opened the editing options and tried raising the contrast and brightness to make the figure more clear. What appeared in the image made me never want to step foot in that theater again. Now, I don't get scared very easily. I'm 6'7", Halloween is my favorite time of year, and I was used to working downtown alone. But the enhanced picture clearly showed a little girl with long hair holding some kind of light. It looked like a lantern, and the flame of that lantern was the same light I had just watched bouncing around moments earlier. After that, the rest of the night was completely silent. I grew up believing my life had always been touched by something unseen, something that wasn't entirely human. My mother used to tell me stories about strange things that happened before I was even born, and over the years, the pieces all stitched themselves into a truth I've never been able to escape. It started decades ago when my mother was in her 20s. She and her friends had been playing with a Ouija board, more out of boredom than belief. They asked whatever spirit was listening to lift a glass of water, and the glass actually rose, levitated inches off the table. The moment it did, they all screamed and shoved the board away. They thought the moment was over, but I've always believed that this was the night something latched onto our family, something that grew patient and stayed. My mother was pregnant with me when the first violent encounter happened. In her last trimester, she woke up choking, hands wrapped around her throat. At first, she thought it was my father, because the arms she saw were hairy, but it wasn't him. He came rushing upstairs, only to see her body being lifted and slammed onto the bed by something he could not see. When it stopped, they were terrified and called the police and an ambulance. My father nearly went to jail. The doctors saw the strangulation marks and didn't believe a word of the story. The police did random checkups on them for months until they finally let it go. But my parents knew something else had been in that room, and that wasn't the end of it. After I was born, I disappeared multiple times. I know how insane that sounds, but I remember one of the moments clearly, even though I was young. My mother took me to a store. Then, suddenly, I was outside near train tracks holding someone's hand. Except it wasn't my mother's. She came running, screaming my name, with people behind her trying to help. When she reached me, the hand I thought I was holding wasn't attached to anything. I still felt it, but no one was there. This happened more than once, enough times that my parents were investigated for child neglect. But the truth was that they were haunted too. They just couldn't tell anyone without sounding insane. My childhood was strange in ways I learned to hide. While other kids obsessed over movies and toys, I worried about when I would see something who wasn't real again. I worried about when I would see someone who wasn't real, because that's what made the haunting worse. The things I saw looked real. They spoke like real people. They felt like real people. Days or weeks later, I'd realized that the person never existed at all. And one of them stayed with me for years. His name, at least the name he gave me, was Jinreth. I met him in elementary school. He looked like any other kid, quiet, calm, always appearing when I was distressed. He seemed to understand me in a way no other child could. That was around the time I became obsessed with saving small animals. I don't know why. Maybe because everything in my world felt fragile. One day in 4th grade, during a blistering hot afternoon, a small bird collapsed on the playground, dehydrated and unmoving. I wanted so badly to help it. Before I could do anything, a boy, Eric, ran up and stomped it to death. It happened so fast the teachers couldn't intervene. I walked home sobbing, and Jinreth walked with me, trying to calm me down. We stopped at a small store, bought some candy, and I remember telling him how badly I wished I could make Eric feel what that bird felt. I didn't mean it literally. I was 9, angry and hurt. The next morning, we learned that Eric had been hit by a car. He was killed instantly when a driver ran a red light. I tried to find Jinreth to tell him, but he was nowhere. I searched the halls, the cafeteria, the playground. I asked everyone around me. No one knew who I was talking about. No one had ever seen him, and I never saw him again, not physically. But his shadow, his presence, remained watching me.